With Israel's relentless bombardment of the Gaza Strip, the hopes of any improvement in the humanitarian situation in Gaza have all but faded. Aid agencies are lamenting over Israel's operations while expressing their complete dismay as to what is unfolding in the Gaza Strip. The chief of the World Health Organization, Tedros Ghebreyesus, has made a pretty strong statement to the United Nations.
Hospital corridors.
Now, according to Dr. Tedros Adhanom, there is absolutely no place that is safe in the Gaza Strip. And he's also said that nearly half of Gaza's hospitals and two-thirds of its primary health care centers are now not functioning because Israel has cut off the fuel supplies. And also the lack of fuel has brought the healthcare system to its knees. The WHO has reported more than 250 attacks. These are attacks on health facilities in the Gaza Strip and also in the West Bank. And remember, there is no Hamas in the West Bank.
On average, a child is killed every 10 minutes in Gaza. 1.5 million people have been displaced and are looking for shelter anywhere they can find it, but nowhere and no one is safe.
The Director General of the Palestinian Red Crescent Society told the United Nations Security Council that the concerns for civilian life has now shifted to the survival of the sick and wounded.
This prohibition on fuel continues, we will not be able to continue to receive this aid and distribute it. Furthermore, if no aid gets to the north of Gaza Strip, we will soon see infants dying because their mothers cannot feed them. Many people will starve and die of diseases.
Meanwhile, the United Nations has said that at least about 100 of its staff, that is 100 United Nations workers, have been killed ever since Israel began the bombardment of the Gaza Strip. And this is the highest death toll for the United Nations agency in such a short span of time in any conflict. To mourn the victims, the United Nations staff around the world will be observing a minute of silence on Monday. The United Nations officials are also criticizing this proposal by Israel to implement the daily 4-hour humanitarian pause. The Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in Palestine has described it as highly cynical and absolutely unhumane. She said that with continuous bombardment, there simply won't be any way back into the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, more than 1,000 officials in the U.S. Agency for International Development have signed an open letter urging the Biden administration to call for an immediate ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. The White House has clarified that there is no scope of a formal ceasefire yet. And remember, it is the Americans who continue to keep arming the Israelis with these massive bombs, which are subsequently then dropped by the Israelis on the Gaza Strip. And we also earlier spoke with Mr. Elon Burstein, who is an assistant professor and an Israel Institute fellow from the Department of Political Science at the University of California. And he told us about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Listen in.
So there's all kinds of rumors every day surfacing regarding possible deals that are going to happen with the hostages. Some say that Israel will agree to a 3-day pause in the fighting in exchange for a certain amount of hostages. Others say that Israel is going to agree to release Palestinian women and minors in Israeli jails in exchange for the women and minors that were kidnapped on October 7th. All that is in the realm of speculation. Right now, Israel's continuing the war and saying it's not going to accept the ceasefire, primarily because most of Israel's previous rounds with Hamas in the last 16 years have all ended with these ceasefires that quite literally blew up in Israel's face on October 7th. So that's the reason that Netanyahu, and I think that he's convinced President Biden, is saying unequivocally Israel will not agree to a ceasefire. It may agree to these limited pauses in order to say it is doing something humanitarian, but it's not going to accept a ceasefire without completing its mission, whatever that completion may be.